All right, good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. Our Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Monday, April 17th, 2023. I have 6:31. Call this meeting to order. We are showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commissioners here, 6 of 7. So a certification of quorum. Mr. Griggs, the introduction of the agenda and the format of the hearing, please.
Thank you, Chair. So for each item tonight, we'll have a call to order, followed by a staff report. Then the applicant will have their opportunity to make a presentation. Afterwards, we'll have public comment in support or opposition to the request. At that time, please state your name and address for the record. Be brief and to the point within a 3-minute time frame. Afterwards, commission and staff will have their discussion, and then the commission will vote to recommend approval as presented, approval with conditions, denial of the request, or to table the item for additional information. The items going on tonight's agenda, the conditional use permit case will go to the Monday, May 8th City Council agenda. There aren't any items removed from the agenda. And then on the consent agenda, you have excusal of absences for Commissioner Hendricks and then Commissioner Kuhn from the April 3rd meeting, and then approval of the April 3rd minutes. And then you also have a preliminary plat. This is property on Broadway at Kenny Road 666. And then for new business, you have a light manufacturing on O'Day in the Garden O'Day mixed use district, and then a commission input and discussion on items that were requested to come up by the commission. Then we'll pass back to you for the consent agenda next.
All right. We are item number 4, consent agenda, includes item A, consideration possible action to excuse absences of Commissioner Hendricks, Commissioner Kuhn. Item B, consideration possible action approval of the minutes of the April 3rd, 2023 meeting. Item C, consideration possible action plat 23-38, preliminary plat of Sunrise Flats. Do I have and there are no items to be removed, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Motion to approve. Commissioner Fortes.
Second.
All right. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. On to new business. We are at item number 1, commission input and discussion, conditional use permit application, CUP 23-09. As a reminder, a CUP is not an official voting item at this time. It is a discussion only. Commissioners are to express their input, questions, and discussion, and then at the end, wrap it up by allowing the commission and the commissioners and the public to know how we would vote if we were allowed to vote on these items. This item number 1 is commission input and discussing conditional use permit application CUP 23-09. Public hearing request by Graham Williams, applicant and owner, for approval of a conditional use permit or CUP for a light manufacturing process use on approximately 1.2626 acres of land located within the Garden O'Day mixed use or GO-MU district. General location being 2054 and 2106 O'Day Road. Staff.
Thank you, Chair. Let me introduce Mohammed Barima to make the staff presentation. Mohammed.
Thank you, Martin. Conditional use permit CUP 2309 is a request for approval of a conditional use permit for a light manufacturing process use within the Garden O'Day mixed use district on approximately 1.2 acres of land. As mentioned, the property, it's actually 2 properties and 2 addresses, 2054 and 2106 O'Day Road. Staff has received one written public comment from a resident who lives in the Village Grove subdivision. A copy of that written comment was passed to you by Shelby. We just received it today. The main concern for the resident was noise coming from previous businesses that have occupied that property. And obviously, also concern about property values and things like that. The, Again, the intent of the applicant is to occupy the existing buildings on the two properties in order to make cornhole bags and boards in those two buildings. Just moving on to the zoning map, the property is located in the mixed-use district, the Garden O'Day mixed-use district. It's the area that's denoted with the yellow box. That's the property. The gray area is the Garden O'Day mixed-use district. So the property is also surrounded by that same district from the north and south, and as well as the east side. From the west side, it's the R1 residential district. This is the future land use plan, and it shows the property is designated for mixed use in that yellow area. And this is a aerial map showing the property surrounded by single family residential homes from all four sides. The one across the street, across O'Day, that's the Village Grove subdivision. And there's some homes that are also from the north, south, and in the west side. Some of those homes have some big buildings. The one on the north and south, they may have some storage and warehouses in their properties. Just a little bit history on the property. So as mentioned, this subject site is combined of two lots. The northern portion or side of the property was developed with warehouses in 1993. And the southern portion was developed with two warehouses between 93 and 97. So that whole area was actually annexed into the city just in 1997. And also a CUP was granted for the southern portion back in 2016 for a machine shop with outdoor sales and building materials. Just the following year, a permit and operating certificate was issued in 2017 for a construction company to locate in that property, and then eventually they expanded their business to the north lot. This is a site plan, two site plans for each of those two lots, 2106 and 2054. And as you can see, on each one of those two, just kind of show the general location of the buildings and the improvements that they have on the property. Roughly each building has about 4,500 to 5,000 square feet of buildings. There are predominantly located adjacent to the property line on either side. So, for example, the one on the north side is kind of closer to the north property line. The south side, the south lot, the buildings along the southern border of the property. So there's a big open area between the two buildings. And when the previous occupant of the property was operating there, they were using that middle ground for their operations, basically. The next slide are floor plans, and basically they just show that the southern property or lot will be used for the creation or the making of those cornhole bags, and the one on the north side, which is 2054, that's gonna be where they're gonna be assembling the boards. The boards are mostly gonna come in a manufactured condition. They're just gonna assemble them. The bags would involve sewing and printing. Those are a few views of that property. This is directly looking at the buildings on the property. This is taken from O'Day Road, looking towards the property. As you can see, the warehouse, it's a metal building. This is the one that's on the southern side, it's 2106. And then you have the other one on the other side, and the area in between them, it's a combination of gravel and concrete. The property is fully fenced in with a combination of wrought iron and wood fences. This is another view, and you can see the wood portion here. This is from O'Day Road, and you can see on the right side, that's the building 2054. Staff reviewed the request based on the different city plans, and the request is consistent with the future land use plan, the thoroughfare plan, and the utility plan. The use is going to be using just existing buildings basically, and the site has some non-conformities to it, but it's all been developed before being annexed into the city. These are the 8 criteria for approval of conditional use permit. Based on a staff analysis, they meet most of these approval criteria, with just one exception. Staff felt maybe that could be met with additional, with one condition, and I'm going to talk about that condition later, basically just to reduce the amount maybe of the visual impact and maybe some of the noise. And as mentioned, staff felt the request met most of the established criteria, and it's consistent with the future land use plan, the intent of that district, which is mixed use. That's how it's always been used that way, and the thoroughfare plan. And with that, staff recommends approval with 3 conditions. The first one, ensuring that all the business operations will be conducted in a fully enclosed buildings. So all of the activities with regard to those 2 manufacturing process has to take place inside those 2 buildings. Second one is the outside storage. Outside storage is actually not permitted in this district by right. It's by conditional use permit. They don't intend to do outdoor storage, and so staff included that condition there. And then staff also recommending adequate vegetative screen to be added adjacent to the residential homes along the west property line in accordance with the requirements of the UDC. Typically, when you have a non-residential use like this, a budding residential, immediate residential use, the UDC recommends or requires actually a buffer at least 25 to 30 feet and with a solid wall. And so this one has a wood fence, but the vegetative aspect is not there. They have roughly about 30 feet of area that is not, that do not have any buildings on them, so they can incorporate some landscaping in that area. Along the north and south side isn't a big issue because the buildings pretty much operate just like a screen from the 2 properties to the north and south. So staff wasn't concerned about those 2 sides, unless the commission may think additional screening may be required. So I'll conclude here, and I'll turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohan. All right. Is the applicant here for their presentation? All right. If you'll step to the podium, just state your name, address, and the floor is yours.
Hey, I'm Graham Williams with Drop the World LLC, doing business as BG Cornhole. The property addresses are 2054 O'Day Road and 2106 O'Day Road. I think Mohammed captured it pretty well. Basically, in the 2106 O'Day Road, we'll be manufacturing cornhole bags. I know that there was a mention of noise. Honestly, the loudest thing that we have equipment-wise is a sewing machine. It's It's really not that loud. We will be operating, with the buildings fully enclosed. Do y'all want me to kind of go through the process, or what would be beneficial in it? Okay. So yeah, basically in 2106, we'll be making cornhole bags, and then in 2054, we'll be making cornhole boards. In the bag side, basically, we will be storing some fabric. Everything will be stored inside. Raw materials are fabric, plastic, resin, thread, other things that you would use for sewing. And basically, we use a sublimation printer. Then we have a heat press in which we press the designs onto the fabric. At that point, we sew them together. We fill them we have like a resin, like a hopper basically, fill them, and then we'll close them again with another sewing machine. And that's pretty much as deep as it gets with the cornhole bags. And then on the other side, the other building, we'll be making cornhole boards. As Mohammed mentioned, basically, we bring in pallets of wood. Essentially, everything's almost already cut. There will be times where we have a small, CNC machine in which we'll have to cut a few components with wood. Also very quiet, fully closed loop system. Not messy. It won't be spraying off any fumes or anything. And then mostly we have a UV printer in which the top of the board sits in. Press a design on it, and then we have another fully enclosed system that finishes coating the boards. So nothing hazardous, everything's fully enclosed, closed loop systems. And most of what we're doing there is, the printing and the finishing of the boards, and then we're just assembling the pieces. As far as the structures are concerned, we're just going to move into them as is. We don't plan on making any modifications to either of the properties. We'll just use them as is. I think that's really all I got.
Okay, Mr. Williams, thank you. Appreciate your time. We may have some questions, just to hang tight just in case. Commissioners? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there any persons here wishing to speak for or against this item? Apologize. Going once, going twice, hearing none, seeing none. All right. Staff, commission, applicant, discussion. Commissioners?
Yes, would you mind going back to the podium, please? What are your hours of operations?
What was that?
Hours of operation.
Hours of operation, generally 8 to 4.
Now, when you said there's not going to be any nailing or anything like that with the boards and stuff, or is it
There's not
automatically?
going to be any
nailed?
what? Sorry.
Nailing.
So most of it'll be basically like pocket holes and then screws.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the pieces come, and actually the pieces actually come fully cut from a CNC, and they actually do already have the holes in there. So we actually have everything pre-cut and drilled. So really it's just, screwing and bolts and screws.
Okay. I don't have any objections to it.
So no nails.
Thank you for coming. Good presentation. Thank you, Mohammed. Years and years and years ago, we established this O'Day Garden Road, I believe that's what we call it, mixed-use district. Unfortunately, other areas call themselves mixed use, and that wasn't, let's not get those two confused. This mixed-use district was to allow those businesses that were in business to continue operations. In the case of a mishap, say a fire or something like that, our rules, I hope they still state this. They used to state that if a business, if it costs more than 50% of the value, I believe, to repair it, something to that effect, you had to make sure the zoning was correct. And essentially all the businesses along there, if we had continued a zoning of residential, those businesses couldn't have come back. And that's one of the main reasons we made this mixed-use district. The other was that we knew the character of those two streets was both light industrial and residential, and we didn't want that right to be taken from either one of them. They had got along, for lack of a better term, for years, and why should we step in with new rules and change that? So that's just a little history. We've maintained that over the years. I know we have a letter here that states that the business prior was operating at all times of the night and early in the morning, and the backup alarms and such were keeping the neighbors, residential persons awake. And I don't think that's going to happen here. So you may, from this letter, you may get council asking for a restriction of hours and such, but I hope you'll consider that when you talk to them. But as it sits now, I know we're supposed to say how we would vote. I would vote for those reasons.
Yeah, that's fair. And we have no intentions of, I think our people are happy working the hours that we work, and we don't have any intention of changing those hours in the foreseeable future.
This is Commissioner Hendricks. I think what you're doing is probably perfect for this location. If I were to vote, I'd vote for it. Also, I do share the concerns of the people that live across the street, that they don't have things waking them up in the night. That's unfortunate that that was happening. But I do understand, too, that this was a business that's been there since the early 90s, and that neighborhood came into production in 2010, 2011, and they knew this business was there when they bought. So I don't think it's fair to restrict the business operations as light industrial, whatever, or mixed use business, because the residents came in way after. I mean, almost 20-something years later. That's not really fair. However, I do appreciate you acknowledging and making sure that you're not going to be a nuisance at night. It sounds like you're probably going to be a better fit than what was there prior, and that is just unfortunate that somebody was waking them up in the night. And so, again, I'd be for it.
I don't have really anything to add. I would be in favor.
This is something that I would be in favor of, but also with the conditions that staff recommended, those 3 conditions. But this was something I support. Thanks.
Quick question. On your drawing for your building, there is a lounge area and a main courts. Is that just for?
Yeah, so the thought process there is if we ever have anyone coming in for meetings or like part of our business, so we make like professional style cornhole bags and boards. Like, I don't know if you happen to see it on TV or.
Yeah, I looked y'all up on your website and noticed that there were quite a few professional level using your bags.
Yeah, so we don't have a ton of visitors, but occasionally if those guys are in town, they will come by the shop, and basically to keep them out of our employees' way, we like to have a space for them to kind of stay out of the way. So that's really what that's intended for employees and then the occasional visitors that we'll have. It's not going to be like, we may have people, locally every once in a while stop by and pick up something, but for the most part, it's all e-commerce. So we don't expect a ton of visitors, but if they do come in, then that basically is a place for them to kind of hang out.
Gotcha. I don't see any issue, and I agree. I think that your use would be a lot tamer than possibly the previous use to the community and the area and sound and that kind of thing, on the conditions that staff recommended as well. So by my count, I count favorably 6-0. All right. We will pass that along to council.
All right, thank you guys. Sorry for
believe-
kind of stumbling through this. Wasn't really sure what to do. So.
No, you did great. It's hard to do it. First time's always the tough one. May 8th? May 8th will be your next visit to council. And And that's where you get the riot act read to you. No, I'm just kidding. All right. The riot act. We are on to item number 2 of new business. Commission input and discussion authority of the Planning and Zoning Commission for deciding conditional use permits, applications, and posting notice on property. Discussion regarding the authority of the Planning and Zoning Commission for deciding conditional use permit applications and posting notice on property. PZ-0567. I guess go to staff for further discussion. Is that where we are?
Yeah, sure. I'll start off with a little introduction of this topic, and then kick it over to y'all to discuss further. So there was a request by Commissioner Eisenberg to discuss about having the vote actually count and be on the record, and about potential removal of the Planning and Zoning Commission from the conditional use permit process. And then I know previously we had a conversation briefly about signage and sign postings, and I know that there was some conclusions from there about points that we could go with, but I just wanted to revisit that to get a definitive direction before pushing that off and getting it implemented. So provided in the staff packet were some quotes out of various sections of the UDC, essentially pertaining to the authority granted through the UDC to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and preparation of reports and making recommendation for conditional use permits with approval, conditional approval, or denial. And then it goes on to describe that the comprehensive plan, petitions for zone changes, conditional use permits, overlay districts, plan developments, amendments to the UDC and other advisory duties as assigned by the council are what are kind of granted and encapsulated within that first chapter and first section, section 1.1.3.3 of the Unified Development Code. And going further into chapter 2, where it really discusses the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission in the review process, in section 2.2.3.3, it discusses a statement about applications for conditional use permits should be presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review and comment. And then further on, it says that the council will also conduct a public meeting and hearing on that application, and the council will receive comments from the Planning and Zoning Commission, but that the council is the final decision maker regarding whether or not to approve with conditions, to modify those conditions, or to deny that permit. So those are really the two sections that, one, provide the authority, and then two, kind of give direction on what those discussions should look like. We've been down a fairly lengthy road of honing the conditional use permit process, getting it away from being an arduous 90-day process to a much briefer 45-day process, and then also amending the implementation of joint hearings where it's both City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission hearing the information at the same time, versus having a separate hearing of the Planning and Zoning Commission and then taking y'all's comments to the City Council. Staff provides the City Council with a draft of the minutes, pertaining the general discussions, and then I provide within the staff packet a general summary of what the high points of discussion were. So I'll provide that as a jump off point. And then if we want to take separate discussions on the CUP and then come back to the signage the second half.
Since I would guess Commissioner Eisenberg, since it was his motion, would be a good place to start. If I had to go there.
Well, you know, it wasn't too many years ago that we were the voting authority, but like you said, it was, and at that time there was a misconception that it took a supermajority to overturn our vote. Well, that was not true. When we were going through this process, it's just a simple majority is all it takes in order to overturn it. I agree with you that it was a lengthy process, and we were trying to cut it down. I don't know why we couldn't keep it that way. The only thing is the way I feel about it is that all we're doing, because I've sat in several city council meetings and stuff, and either I've sat in them or I've watched them from the house because I have no life, but I feel like that we are to have either a vote that goes on the record, or we just don't do it at all. Let it go straight to council. You know, we're a sounding board for all of it, but the bottom line is they're the ones having to vote on it in the end anyway. Now, I know that some people can say, well, that pretty much goes with anything that we do. It's got to be finalized by city council. But I feel like that we're just wasting our time on a lot of times with the CUPs when it's no more than, well, yes, council, here it is. Y'all vote on it. It's a waste of time to the people that have to come up here and then in a couple of weeks go back and talk to city council. So either we have a vote that actually means something, that goes on the record, that council can look at it and see that we were, you know, that we actually took a stand and we voted against it or we voted for it, and the public can see it as well, and then city council can make their stand on it. You know, but I'm good with either way. I mean, whatever council wants to do. As far as I'm concerned, if they don't really think that we need to vote on it, and if that can shorten the process, then let the people that have to come up here for the 2 meetings, let them go to one meeting, and the one that actually counts. So that's all I got to say about it.
Okay, I have a comment on that. I do agree that we could do either or, but I would say that by this being posted, and this is a first opportunity for people in the public to come and voice their concerns. On the flip side of that, the person that is petitioning to have their property changed actually can learn what is going against them, whether it be traffic, drainage, or some certain issue, and they can come prepared for that council meeting. Because I've actually been in that position as a business owner, having my land rezoned. When it went to the Planning and Zoning Commission, you know, we knew by the time we went to council 2 weeks later what we needed to present and what we needed to bring in favor of our change. So that is a benefit to them, although I'm sure that they don't like having to come up here twice. I do get that, but it sometimes can work in their benefit. But I'm good with either or. If council is taking in our input and really listening to that, or maybe input of what other people have said in the meetings, our meetings, then it's still benefiting the public either way.
Point of clarification. If we were in the past, when the Planning and Zoning Commission voted on a CUP. If it was denied, did the council not need a supermajority to approve? And vice versa, if it was approved, did they need a supermajority to defeat?
When CUPs were considered in part zoning, then as the P&Z, your recommendation had a different impact. When CUPs became permits, or as they became permits, and were not considered any part of zoning, the supermajority requirement was not necessary either way. So, pursuant to state law, now the city ordinance could actually give it different authority than what state law has, but the difference between the supermajority and zoning in state law is your impact forces a different vote from city council.
So I guess if I'm a city council member, and that'll never happen, for the record, for many reasons, who would vote for me anyway? I don't see a drawback. What I understood prior, when it was changed, what I heard was that they didn't care for the voting patterns that the commission had, and that it took a supermajority to overrule them, and that was difficult in and of itself. But if there is no supermajority any longer, I don't understand why this would even be an issue for us to have that voting ability. So,
And I don't want to speak for the CUP committee. I wasn't at all of those meetings. I wasn't on it. I was in meetings, and I prepared information from them. And I would just say that not everybody who recommended the change and not everybody who voted for the change had the same reasons. And I think it's safe to say that there are some people who are less inclined to hear the total number of people for and against and are more interested in the why. So a quick discussion with a recorded vote of 6-0 or 4-3 or 2-5 was less important to some people than give me reasons why I should and should not approve it, which is what I think the discussion is, and why they wanted to make sure that your voices were carried in the minutes, even though the total tally at the end was not counted. That's not to say that there weren't other people who were concerned about the total vote and its effect on their vote. I would say that different people, different reasons, and when this goes back to council, I think that we'll hear something similar from council. You know, there will be some people who may think that it might be a process that's not necessary. If your vote isn't going to force them to do anything, there'll be some people, as Ms. Henricks said, Commissioner Henricks said, that, you know, to warm up. It gives people a chance to learn and address the issues. There'll be some who really want to know why you would do what you would do, or not do what you would do. They're more interested in the analysis. If there's anything I know about city councils, there are 7 opinions.
So I would be good either way with if our vote counted. If it didn't, I understand the rationale for wanting to know our thought process and maybe give a citizen an opportunity to experience what the procedure would be like before going before council. But I feel that staff does a very good job of walking citizens through the process, whether it be the first time or the second time that they're coming. And I think that even if you get our opinions to the point that Lawrence just said, you have 7 different opinions. And while I might feel one way, it might have no influence on what someone already feels concerning a certain conditional use permit. So I understand that, but I also think that I I wouldn't want a citizen to have to come twice if they didn't have to. Because to come down here and attend those meetings, that's time consuming, and I always want to be conscious of someone's time. And for us, this is the second meeting that the only thing we've done is give an opinion on a conditional use permit. And if it had not been for that, it'd be discussion items and commissioner's activity report. So for me, if my opinion is not truly going to be effective, meaning that it's not counted towards a vote, I'm okay with sitting this out and us not having a meeting at all. So I do understand all sides, and I guess I'd be with the majority, but I want it to mean something. Either let's don't do it, or let's do it and the vote actually counts. Because otherwise, I don't think it's enough benefits to support a meeting, and this is all we did. Thank you.
I guess my only question would be, how often does city council not listen to our recommendations? What's the percentage? Guesstimate.
I'm going to jump in and suggest that that's a baited question. Listen to versus reverse what y'all would, when you say what you would do, because those could be two very different things. They could hear your opinion and disagree, or what was presented to you may be different when it's presented to them, and they might do something differently.
So let's go with the reverse.
I'm not a statistician, so I'd leave that to Martin to stick his head out.
As an example, tonight, all 6 of us said, yes, if it was up to us, we would vote to have the beanbag place go in there. But it goes to city council. How often does that circumstance change?
So, and, you know, it is baseball season, and I would love to give this analogy. Y'all have an exceptional batting record. You know, the council, you know, oftentimes goes along with what Planning and Zoning Commission recommends. You know, we've had opportunities with the conditions, and where, you know, staff has come up with conditions, but then, you know, y'all through your community knowledge have raised other issues, and we've been able to incorporate those into, you know, into our presentation to the city council, and had that additional knowledge reflected in the conditions for approval. I don't have a particular stat on, you know, when things have gone sideways or not gone in accordance with what P&Z recommended. But I also don't have a specific on when individual commissioners have disagreed, and then that disagreement, you know, caused additional comments before council, or, you know, had additional reflection opportunity. So I will say that council often asks, who was there at that meeting? Who made that comment? Which commissioner said that? Just so that way they get a better feel for you know, y'all's discussion points, as they may not have the opportunity to watch the video and are just sifting through the minutes in the staff packet. So I feel, and you know, this is my opinion, but that the P&Z does an important job in preparing applicants with a line of questioning, and with a precursor to what council will hear and listen to.
I think that the most helpful thing is when it's a contentious issue or a misunderstood use, that it gives the person who wants to change the land use a chance to see what the neighborhood, what everybody's around them is going to say, to maybe even work it out with their neighbors. And they wouldn't have, if they just showed up to council for the first time, they would probably lose their case because there's a lot going on. And I think council feels that they're an elected body and that they have to really, I mean, if there's 30 people that show up against something, they're probably not going to vote for something, even though the facts don't make sense in the case, why they should deny it. But I think it does give the person that wants to change the land the opportunity to work it out, maybe present their case better, or even show up to present their case. Or sometimes it gives us all the opportunity, including council, to learn that there was some nefarious activity going on, and we didn't know about that until the neighbors show up. And so it gives people opportunity to look into it more. I think it helps the situation that they get to come twice.
Yeah. In the end, I agree with both of you, all of you who've made your comments. I don't have the history that you have, but I'm like, okay, like Commissioner Boswell, I'm like, why do we do something and then it's not official? You know, what are we doing? But there's been some very good points that have been brought out. And I just wanted to know how often would City Council reverse what our recommendation would be? Thank you.
Well, I'm going to be careful about this, but we just had something that we voted. I think we were 4-2, I think it was, in turning down a CUP for the gas station on John Lizer Road. At that particular council meeting, when they were taking the vote, we had one councilman that wasn't able to attend, and it came down to a tie, requiring Mayor Cole to have to cast the deciding vote. Well, he sided with PNC. However, if the councilman that had been that wasn't able to attend that night, if he'd have been there, then it would have went in favor of the business. And that's fine. I mean, that's just the way it is. But my whole thing is wanting us to have a vote in it. If we're having a vote in it, then we have it still gives the applicant an opportunity to come up here, but he's getting some bang for his buck. I feel like that when we go in there, we're going in and they're getting the same information from us that they're getting in this recommendation. But it also, to me, if I was a city councilman, I would look at it from, I need to, P&Z voted on this. We don't have to worry about voters. They do. I mean, back when it did take a supermajority for us to overturn it, for them to overturn it, it took a lot of public scrutiny out of their bailiwick. So, to me, it just makes it kind of easy because the public does not have anything to do with us being on this board. We serve at the behest of the council. And so, I just personally, if we're going to do it, I just think that we need to have a documented vote for it with all the information that goes with this discussion, except it's a vote for the record. I could understand, not wanting us to go through that process for if we do have an applicant that's inexperienced, or even it as Commissioner Hendricks said, having the public come out. What I see is we get a lot of public come out with us, and then it seems to be a drop off at City Council. I'm wondering if that was the first time that they had a chance to go, would they be more enforced then than they are when they come in here? But when they come in here, I think their thinking is that we have a vote. They're thinking when they get here, they say, well, their vote don't really count. They're making recommendations, but that's all they can do.
And an additional comment to what he said, we do get people that come in here, like once the citizens are talking and we're telling them that we can't dialogue with them, and then it kind of ends with, we don't have a vote on this, but this is the way that we would vote. So, and I know that we put that disclaimer out there when we start that we're merely giving our recommendation, our vote won't count, this will go to council, well, they'll vote. So I know we put that disclaimer out there, but I don't know how clear it is for the citizens and the applicant that this is kind of like a trial run. This is just, to get your feet wet or get familiar with the procedure or whatever the case may be. And our vote doesn't count. I mean, they can take our recommendations, but I don't know how clear that is often because to his point, it does get heated sometimes. And it's all for us giving our recommendations of what we would do and not what we can do.
I agree. I mean, I think, as some level of volunteers up here, we want to feel like we're value added to a discussion, and as the CUP process is presented to us, it doesn't feel like we're value added to the level that I think we should be. In my opinion, I appreciate the fact that a citizen can come up here, an applicant come up here and give a presentation and kind of work their way through the questions or the issues. But, I also know there are people that have presented it and are aware that we had zero to no authority, knowing that they have, what a deal, anticipating the fact that they don't really even need to be here. We'll worry about council and not worry about planning and zoning. So, if there's no teeth to it, to what we present, as far as an applicant's concerned, or even the citizens, when they figure that out, possibly, it does bring on a level of futility on our part, I know, and on the citizens and the applicant, that what am I doing, wasting my time? I got to come back in 2 weeks and do this all over again. It's hard enough to get here one time. So my thought is, let's make it have a count. Let's make it count, or let's do away with it. I mean, that's one of the two. I mean, it's either or, as far as I'm concerned. The middle ground is futility in a way to me, because we have enough items that we do spend time on, and we get to a CUP as Commissioner Boswell mentioned. I mean, like tonight, I mean, we could have kicked the discussion items on to the next meeting and had nothing if a CUP wasn't even on here. So, so that's mine, and I think everybody's kind of summarized their thoughts in a hodgepodge kind of way. All right. Any further discussion on that item? Well, you had a part 2 about signage.
So before we move on to part 2, I just wanted to figure out where we thought the next step was on this particular issue. Are y'all, it's posted as a discussion item. So I guess the question would be, Martin, where did you anticipate this going next?
I was going to end with that after part 2.
Okay, well, I apologize for jumping the gun on that. Let's go to part 2.
Just to allay the concerns here. So the caboose at the end was we're getting towards hopefully rewriting portions of the UDC. And if that goes for mid-year, or let me back the train up, so to speak. I am full of puns today. We were planning on having the UDC rewrite get funded, and to kind of pause all of the UDC amendments to encapsulate all of those great ideas into one batch, since that didn't happen, and we're kind of coming back to gathering up a few amendments. We were planning on having this, whatever came out of today's discussion, wrapped into the next batch of UDC amendments. And we would take those, that batch of amendments probably in early summer. So June, July is when we were looking to get those brought back to P&Z for actual public hearing and consideration. But on to part two. So part two is about the posting of notice on the property for public hearings. UDC section 1.2.2.4 goes into that discussion and says that it is both a requirement of state law to have the posting and within the city charter, and of course within the UDC in order to have the meeting for either the Board of Zoning Adjustments or the Planning and Zoning Commission, or for City Council and public hearing items. So the UDC requires that for a conditional use permit, really for zoning conditional use permit or variance, that a sign be posted on the property, and then there are some specifications on the sign. What I'll highlight and draw everyone's attention to is that the signs shall be of size, type, message, and content as determined by the city, but shall advise that a variance, CUP, or zone change has been requested, and shall list the telephone number of the planning department for more information. The city is hereby authorized to establish size, type, and message requirements for such signs, and to distribute such requirements to applicants. And then within the packet, we have examples of what the language says. First line says proposed CUP, zone change, variance, or special exception, depending on what type of case they're going for. Contact City of Pearland at the planning website, pearlandtx.gov/planning, and then provides the planning department's telephone number at 281-652-1765. Our current instructions are provided to each and every applicant, and we get them to sign the sign acknowledgement form that has all of those specifications for signage written, and that we have both the applicant and the property owner sign off on that, because previously we had issues where the applicant would sign and the property owner would know that they needed to apply for the CUP but didn't know about the sign, and then the applicant forgot or didn't remember or didn't get the sign up in time and had to be punted out additional days. So then the property owner got frustrated by their tenant not being able to move in and start conducting business and earning rent. So that's why we have both the applicant and property owner sign on that acknowledgement form. As I said in previous discussions, we heard creating a QR code and having that go to the public hearings webpage. But as the UDC is currently written, we can amend and make changes to the proposed language that's out there. I know recently we've made a change that has the CUP number added to it. So these are all things that we're slowly trying to add and implement to make the process better.
So the QR code is possible or not possible?
I think the QR code is possible.
Okay. I was going to say, I'm driving around over the weekend and looking at houses for whatever reason. My wife decided to. My 12-year-old was with me, and there was a house for sale, and he goes, just scan the QR code. I go, okay, I know what that is, and it's going to show me the house. He goes, yeah, I can make those myself. I said, you're 12. He goes, yeah, I know. We do it at school all the time. So I figure if a 12-year-old can make QR code, I would think that we can work something out somehow where it is accessible to people. Now, using it is one thing. Yeah, it doesn't mean any, but I think that the way things are these days, I mean, the old days of picking up a flyer are long gone. I mean, you can scan something and, use your phone or whatever. So, I just, the signage to me, there are projects that are ginormous. I mean, they're, manufacturing facility, and there's a sign that's about as big as this computer screen, it seems like anyways. And I just, you don't get to me, sometimes you don't get the weight of the situation. Sometimes it's bigger to the project, and you want to, I want a sign equivalent to that sometimes. Or it's on a highway that there's no real place to stop to figure out what this CUP number is or phone number is or anything like that. So anything we can do to assist a citizen in figuring out quickly, if possible, hey, number one, people are nosy. They want to know what's going on, because everybody is, because I get those calls. I'm sure all of us do. What's going on in the corner of the whatever. So the other part, and if we can cut some of that out from you guys having to field those calls as well, and they can just get there themselves, that's got to be helpful on some level for staff as well. So I just, anything we can do, our job is to answer the questions when we can, or to direct them to where to get those answers if possible. So
I know that as I've looked, we've heard here that there were no notices. People didn't see the notice. Maybe the sign wasn't big enough, or there wasn't enough, and maybe there can be some requirement, as that was mentioned earlier. If it's a huge project, they have to put up more than one little sign. And I'm only going to use the city of Houston because I lived down there for a really long time. If somebody wanted to go from a single family lot to a multifamily, there was a huge sign, huge, and it said, this is going from, it's still going to be residential, but it's going from single family to multifamily on this one lot. So it told people what was happening. It was, it said, hey, we're going to go from a single family home to 6 townhomes, or whatever the case would be. So I agree. I mean, the sign needs to be large, it needs to be prominent, and there needs to be an easy way for people to tell what's going on in their neighborhood. And you read sites like Nextdoor, and there's always people going, what's going on there? Because they didn't see the sign. And it was mentioned earlier, they don't have time to stop and get out of their car and read the sign. So there needs to be more transparency, I guess, whatever that looks like. Thank you.
I think that in the case of the guy that makes the cornhole, I think the residents, the neighborhood would have known he was just making beanbags and cornhole boards. That I don't know that they would have freaked out. I don't know if that's the right word, but not been happy about it. I think it wouldn't have been an issue, because apparently what was there before was obnoxious, and I don't see how cornhole could be. But as an example, I think maybe if they had a QR code and they had the option to also, they could maybe list a business. I don't know, that would just be optional. Massage or accounting or something that's short to help them not scare the neighborhood behind them. That might be something that we just say, hey, we're not requiring you to put what you want to do here, but that's just an option to put that on your sign. But I think the QR code scanner is great, because it can lead straight to a website where you'll have all this information. And I guess the other question is, you don't have to list what they're doing, but do they list on the website right now what it is they're going to do for business?
So we direct everyone back to the public hearings page. The public hearings page has the applicant packet. That's the same packet that y'all receive in the back of your staff report. And we also attach a map out there for people to see kind of the boundaries of, how big is this project, or which one of those lots is it in particular. So that's, and we put that information out onto the website before any of the written notices go out in the mail. So we try to always be ahead of the curve on providing information to the public.
Yeah, I think the QR code that would lead them straight to that would be really helpful in fielding calls. And that's really all I have on that, other than making it more obvious as to what's going on.
To add to that, I think the current signage simply states what the process is, if that describes that. So you drive by a sign and it says something about the zone change. It doesn't say this to this, that to A to B, B to C, any of that. So I think that's where your confusion and rumors start. But I mean, city staff would have to tell us if that's even an issue to them. But for me, the more information, the better. And if it means going to a website that you guys control and you guys can say, hey, we had 54 hits. The last 5 we've had didn't have any hits at all. So, this obviously is a big deal, even though comments weren't left. I mean, that'd be a good indication for us. But, yeah, I don't want to overly put too much information on there, because I think these custom signs cost the users, a fair amount of change, although it's part of the process. If we could minimize that, it's that much better. I don't know if an option is in the future that if you guys were going to even put on your own QR codes, the city could have their own sites, 10 different ones, for example, and then sell them to the applicants. I don't know if that's allowed, but it would stop them from having to go down to the local print shop and trying to figure out how to get a sign in the exact verbiage and getting it wrong the first 3 times and then getting it right, or there being any discrepancies thereof in the different signage. Just a thought. Probably a bad one.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. I mean, the whole idea when we brought this up was strictly for to have more information out there for the public. That's been one of the things that when I sat on planning and zoning before, I had several people come to me and say, "Why won't they give us more information?" I said, "Well, it's real simple. All you got to do is call City Hall and talk to somebody on staff. They'll take care of. They'll get you to the right person." I said, or you can go on website or whatever. But the QR code seems to be the new best and greatest tool out there now. I mean, I've noticed a lot of the real estate signs now have gone to these QR codes and stuff. Instead of having phone numbers on there, you reach up there, you hit that QR code, you go in there and you get information about the property and stuff. To me, it just makes a lot of sense. And if it's not labor intensive upon staff, which that would be something that y'all would have to weigh out, is the phone calls y'all get, would it outweigh the having a QR code put on there that might eliminate some of that? You're always going to get somebody that's going to call in, but it may be able to stop a lot of it. And even people that are my age, that this QR codes that I got to ask my grandson, what does that mean, and stuff. But, the whole thing is that even people my age are now getting a grasp of it, because it's really simple to do. You sit there, you take a picture of it, it goes to a website, you look it up, and there's the information. And heck, I mean, if I can do it, I guarantee you anybody else can. But that's the only thing. When I brought it up It was nothing more than trying to get more information for the public. And really and truly, it was to get staff less cumbersome on staff. Now, I don't know if that's doing that by y'all having to create these QR codes, but it looks like to me once we get them done, it's done. You give them out to them on those signs and stuff. Let them put them on those signs and be done with it. So.
All right.
Yeah, no, I thank y'all for all of that. I know we can get the QR code implemented fairly quickly. And then, the list of uses and requests, I think we can scratch our heads and work on that, because at the end of the day, I don't want to provide bad information and to, let the applicant just go out there and say whatever they're going to say on the sign, and for that to potentially cause misinterpretation, misconstruction. So I may want a little more control or a little more, input on that to make sure that we don't end up with, it only said single family and they're doing industrial, or they're doing whatever, massages, yay, or a gas station. Those are the types of things that I want to make sure that we provide that information, but also don't allow a nefarious unintended consequence there. And then also seeing if I can get the information on the number of clicks for each PDF. I think that was a good idea. So thank y'all for that. Appreciate it. And like I said, those changes I can most likely make without having any additional UDC changes. So with that, I think I'm good. I already talked about the caboose, so.
And the circle back to the first item, as far as you were going to wrap it up.
Right. So there are some other UDC amendments that I intend to bring, but I didn't have them prepared to bring for discussion today. I'm going to try and get those in front of y'all in May, so that way, because each UDC, I know it's been a while since we've had a UDC amendment, but I want to bring forward a discussion about it before bringing y'all the public hearing to make a recommendation on. So I want to bring those discussions for y'all to weigh in on, and then we'll publish the public hearing later.
Okay. Any further? Anybody else? Further discussion? All right. Thank you, staff and commissioners. That concludes new business. Discussion items, commissioners' activity report. Anybody? Bueller? All right. There's a next joint CPAC P&Z Commission meeting is April 19, 2023 at the City Hall Annex, the Houston Conference Room. Is everybody familiar with that? It's over here. Yeah. It's not in this building. It'll be next door.
Glad we all pointed in the right.
I am not available Wednesday, unfortunately. Do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Nice. All right. Next P&Z regular meeting is May 1st. Does anyone know at this time whether they would be unable to attend? No. Looks good so far. May 1st. Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, seeing none. All right. Meeting adjourned at, I've got 7:45. Thank you.